Welcome to the very first video episode of Our Public Therapy. Check-in session number 3 or 4 in this most recent season.
Yeah, it's time for a bonus episode. Today's a special day because in the future, we're going to have an even more special guest on. Right now, our guest is actually my dog, who's doing great, just chilling on the ground on his little bed. He'll probably speak up at some point during this recording, but right now, he's doing amazing. And he doesn't need therapy, but I'm thinking one of us or one of our listeners might benefit from a little check-in,
Yeah.
and that's what we're doing today.
Yeah, if anything, he's our therapist. Keeps us sane and mentally healthy in an otherwise unhealthy world.
Right.
But we're not the only ones who are unhealthy. There are plenty of people who are suffering from poor mental health, and one of the things that keeps us sane are pets, but also distractions. Little things that entertain us and give us joy. Something I know that you and I both enjoy and fills that role are video games.
Very true. I, for one, have been consumed with the latest Mortal Kombat release, MK1. So I could attest to that, being able to take your mind off of other issues and also give you goals, aspirations. Like the adage, get good, I think should be like in a religious text somewhere.
Sorry, you lost me as soon as you told me that the new Mortal Kombat is MK1, so they're,
Right.
resetting?
I know. It's confusing. It's like the Xbox is not the 540, it's just the Xbox now. And now games on it are also regressing. So yeah, it's like a whole universe reset. I don't know. You know how franchises do. They don't want to keep going up in numbers. So technically it is 12. Like the story does follow.
Wait,
the
so
last
it's not
one.
even like 11 and they're going down to 1, instead it's 12 and they're doing this?
Yeah, the last one was MK11, and this story follows the end of that story. But I guess they didn't want to call it 12.
You gotta love universe resets, or in this case, not love them so much.
Well, if you don't love the story, you can love the grind of getting better and eventually angering people online, which is what we're not here to do. We're here to figure out ways to make games beneficial to your own health and not detrimental to the health of others.
Very true. So, what kind of games do you get into?
So I think I could break my main game genres down probably into 3. Like, I love first-person shooters. Not a Call of Duty fan, but I have played. Usually it's either Apex Legends or Valorant. And then if I'm not doing FPS, it's fighting games. That's what Mortal Kombat is classified as. I'm not a big fan for Street Fighter, but I did play 5. I didn't mind that one. And then the last one is puzzles. I love puzzles. So I would consider chess, which has been my kick before MK released, for the past probably 3 or 4 months, just at least an hour every day. I think I'm at like 1,500 games on chess.com, and I save all of them. Not because I play amazingly, but rather you want to save all the games that you play terribly and then look back at it, because there's these beautiful chess engines that allow you to see just how terrible you are compared to a computer.
Yeah, how else do you get good?
And you don't. You use all the tools at your disposal.
Now, what is getting good? Like, how good do I need to be to have gotten good? Like, if I'm just able to, like, pick up a controller and kill a bunch of 6-year-olds, have I gotten good?
If one of those 6-year-olds in the chat said "get good, scrub," and then you beat them, technically, yes, you
All right.
are good. There's levels to it. So at any point, you could run into someone who tells you that, and then it's your new goal to get good. Good is just good enough to beat the person who told you that. Because that's really what the phrase is. It's something people say to you when they beat you, and it's very frustrating, but that's why we're here.
Okay, so
To
getting
better
good,
that health.
Getting good is contextual, but at the same time, it's actually like inspirational, or
Yeah.
so like you're
Right. There's no limit to how good you can get. And conversely, no limit to how crappy someone can make you feel when you lose.
See, I tip my hat to all that, but the competitive scene has just never been for me. Like, when I'm entering into a video game, I want to lose track of reality. Possibly for much longer than it's healthier to do, right? I want to get into either one of those, like, RPGs, or I want to do something that has a good storyline and adventure, and I want something that has a clear endpoint, right? With Mortal Kombat, or any sort of fighting or competitive game, when does it end? Like, you don't really have a point where it's like, well, the season's over, but the new season's starting.
Right.
So,
right. And you might finish maybe the in-game content. If you bought the game or any other game for a specific portion of the game's content, then it could be over when you complete that part that you got it for. So in MK, there is a story mode. Some people only get it for the story, and they never play a game online. So that might be you, where you're more into the cinematics and storytelling as opposed to the competitive side of things.
Yep, as well as I need a solid endpoint for the game. Like, if I can just be in there indefinitely, then I might be there indefinitely. And that's not good for anybody. So, that's one of the things I need. I need some sort of story or, like, some sort of adventure to engage me. I need to get lost in that. Which I guess is why, despite being roommates for a few years, you and I have never played a video game together.
Yeah, board game, maybe. Mm-hmm. But video game, I think our preferences are pretty different. Because I liked The Witcher a lot. Mm-hmm. But I could say that's probably the last RPG I've played. And that was probably 4 or 5 years ago. So, yeah, maybe our interests don't overlap that often. But maybe in this check-in here, we could find something that fits both of us. If the game isn't out there, we will propose it. What would it look like?
Exactly so. Blank slate, tabula rasa. What are some of those things that you need in your ideal game? I'll throw some mine in there. We'll mix up the blender, and then we'll see what we get. Maybe we create something that's already out there, or we now give the game developers something to, like, start to work towards.
Okay. So, number 1, BM. It's a initialism in the gaming sphere that stands for bad manners. And it's just etiquette, you know? And then the ability to break said etiquette. I like that in games because at the end of the day, in competition, you know, that's sometimes what drives you. Someone disrespecting you online and then you saying, okay, that's how it is. And you turn it up a notch. So, like, for example, fighting games and first-person shooters, it may have actually originated in first-person shooters. But anyway, this is a mechanic of minigames, and I can't use a less accurate word, and it wouldn't get the point across. But it's called teabagging, okay? And it's a movement where you just crouch and stand repeatedly. So if you're in a game that allows you to crouch and stand, you could teabag. And if there's enemies in your game, fellow competition, and they could see you teabagging, then that is a sign of disrespect, and you got to go after that person.
So you want
the ability, yes,
to, like, be disrespectful.
Yes, it has to be an option. It's part of the human experience. Okay, respect, one of the most important emotions or I guess feelings that could be conveyed to a person.
Now let me ask you this: does this need to be integral to the game's design, or is that something that just would naturally evolve from, like, people playing together? Because teabagging is also called crouching. Like, it's an action that you can do as part of the actual game mechanic. But the bad manners, the, like, connotation behind it, is from an application of the mechanic, not something that was actually put in the game as a design to promote bad manners, right?
Well-
Whereas like a taunt in a video game is more so like something that's designed to like mess with your opponent, right?
Well, it would need to be a situation where even if crouching is a core mechanic, if no one can see you crouch, then it's not teabagging. It's just you're just crouching. It's only when it's a way to communicate to another person that it is considered that BM.
Alright, so I would say it this way. BM is part of the language that evolves from a game or a game community, and it would then be part of the game to allow for there to be words and methods within that language to then communicate. The bad manners evolve from using those words, but I think that if a game tried to tell you how to be like rude to each other, something else would develop entirely, because then like the game's telling me what to do. I'm not going to do that.
Well, it doesn't tell you what to do. It lets you choose whether to do it or not. For example, in Mortal Kombat, if you do 4 teabags, you get a taunt. So the way you do a taunt is by teabagging. So sometimes those two mechanics are kind of inextricably linked. And I like how they did that in MK. But it could be a thing where if in your game your movement is quick enough that you can get some very interesting variations. So now not only are you disrespecting with your bad manners, you're also showing off. Like I can teabag better than you can, right? Check this out. And then you do like 30 crouches per second somehow. And it just looks ridiculous. And then you start throwing in extra movements in between. So now you're doing like crouch, walk forward, crouch, block. That cycle, maybe it looks like you're doing some weird dance on their body after you've gotten that first team kill or something. I don't know.
Alright, but the important thing I'm hearing is you need there to be interaction amongst players.
Yes, it's player interaction with the possibility of disrespect. Mm-hmm. Don't sanitize it to the point where everything is all hugs and kisses. Because sometimes games are competitive, grimy. Sometimes you got a grudge and you're just waiting to see that gamer tag again because you remember. So that's what I would bring to our game. That type of interaction, the potential to form lasting relationships, good or bad.
Well, from the manners at least, probably a lot of bad.
Yeah, and to show off, like it's fun to have those mechanics have layers to them. You know, it's not just press crouch and then stand up. Like maybe you've got movement in between or some sort of skill ceiling to the bad manners.
All right, what I want is something that I addressed earlier, which is a solid endpoint where you can kind of leave and exit and just kind of move on. And it doesn't need to be like a instantaneous thing where you like just beat the final boss or whatever. It needs to be something where I can put in my time, I can enjoy myself, and then I can leave and feel satisfied afterwards, rather than just feeling like, well, there's more I need to do. If I don't get in on this next season, I'm gonna like lose my ranking or whatever. Like I want to be able to just play something to completion and then like move on.
Okay, so like a final boss or final mission. What else could mark the end of a game?
Yeah, I also think that just it building towards something.
Max level, I guess.
Some max level or something, but I want to feel like there's some feeling of progress towards an actual goal. Like there isn't just this general ranking system like, oh, you're kind of here or kind of there, but no, through the process of playing the game, you achieve something. And it's just a virtual something, it's a simulated something, but you went on a journey and you were able to achieve something along the way.
Okay, I hear you. In goal, objectives. I've mentioned a few possibilities, but it doesn't always have to be a last boss. It could be a level cap. It could be a story if the game is a story mode. Or, good example, there's kind of this genre of games that are just climbing, I guess.
Yeah.
where the challenge is get to the top. Like that
Absolutely.
is about as clear of a goal as you can set in a video game. There's
Yeah.
nothing after it. Maybe there's like a bonus content or something. I think it was it going up or something? There's been a emergence of that genre.
Just kind of
since the last
platformers
one.
where you go up, complete the task.
Yeah, the last one I remember, you were in like this cauldron, and you're just a person with a sledgehammer, and all of your movement is just you using your sledgehammer to like lift yourself in very unique ways. And the goal is to get from the base level basically to the sky, and there's all sorts of obstacles in your way. But at every point you're going up, and if you mess up, you have the potential to fall all the way back to the beginning. So it's very rewarding if you make it, but I don't know if I could stomach like losing 3 hours of progress just because you missed one technique, you know?
I got you. So this is a interesting dynamic then, where it's the same thing for why like I can't watch TV with my dad too often, because he loves sport. He loves the competition, and sport is inherently not story, right? It's two groups or two people putting their skills against each other and seeing who can come out on top. Whereas the actual narrative is something that happens outside of that competition, right? So
Right, the story is in the locker room, you know?
Yeah.
It's in the practice fields.
Yeah, it's like
that's where the story is.
like I cannot enjoy watching even the most intense like back and forth like game of like basketball or football or whatever. I'm just gonna be bored. But the like ESPN 30 for 30, I eat that crap up. Hearing the story behind what was going on, like I don't care about the actual like game between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, but their rivalry that became a friendship, I'll gobble that stuff up. So it seems like there's almost like that kind of tension between our two interests, where that kind of competitive like self-improvement, like acquiring of those skills and getting better and better that you're talking about is very sports. But I'm requiring an interjection of story and narrative into that,
okay.
which is kind of tricky, but like something that we can work on. That's
And
kind of where
Okay.
that's where we need to find the synthesis.
An idea is forming here from one of the NBA 2K numbers.
All right, lay it out.
They have a mode where you can be a franchise player, you know, just rookie, basically. You get to go all the way from being recruited to the NBA to whatever level of stardom you achieve during the video game. And voice acting aside, there's some pretty bad voice acting in the locker room, because they got some real NBA players to show up, and, you know, that's not their skill set, voice acting. I've seen the interviews, post-game interviews, but in those game modes, it's a way to alternate between this pure competitive, just on the court, score more than the other team, and off the court, what's your story? Where are you from? What are your skill sets? How did you develop? Where did you get those from? You know, in the locker room, it's more about your interactions with other people. Your coach can actually directly influence your stats and your mindset. FIFA does this as well, where you could do in between games. There's ways to do like pep talks to your team, and if one person you see has like a bad mental, like they're being down on themselves or low confident, there's a mechanic within the game where you can interact with that player and hopefully get the positive outcome where they're not feeling so bad. So in that case, it's a sport game with a blend of some like character interaction. It's not just
You have
score
a
points.
slice of life aspect
Yeah.
outside.
a slice of life when you're off the court. So
Our
maybe we could
roommate
blend
is a
those.
big fan of the game Persona, and this is sounding kind of like that. You have
Yeah, it's
some
who
games, then you go outside and you have like fun with your friends.
Exactly. So we could try blending that, having the purely competitive level, maybe even separate from the RPG, roaming the world and interacting with people, growing through stories side of the game. So that's my idea.
Which I'm kind of digging. I'm seeing something start to develop where it's almost, and I'll still use like basketball as the framework, but there's almost like a like competitive aspect and then kind of a building on your own aspect where practice is something that you do either with like people on your team or as a solo thing, and that's where you'd have something like RPG elements like a mini quest or like side quests or things, and that's all out on the side. But then there are scheduled events that you need to do in order to like actually compete, and so you actually go into, collective team games where either it's one-on-one or you actually have a group and a team and you're competing against them.
Okay.
The aspect that I then would want there to be an endpoint, I think, would be something like you actually follow the career of an individual player.
So retirement, maybe.
Yep, and so something where there are a certain number of seasons that you go through. And let's say that I don't know enough about basketball to say for certain, but let's say the average career is 15 years.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good
Probably,
career?
yeah, high end for the average, but I'll let it slide. Football, I know it's like very low. It's for certain position, like 3 years in the league. So maybe 3 times that.
All right, then
basketball.
let's say 10 years.
Yeah.
Let's say that you had a good, strong 10-year career, which is, commendable.
Very.
Then, like, you have different seasons you go through, but there is a clear endpoint. At the end of 10 seasons, your character's career is complete. And then you can always, make a new character, go through the whole thing again. But you reach the endpoint, you've completed the journey, the arc, and then you can do it again if you want to, but you'll have completed what that story is.
I like it. So the end point is based on time. Like in some types of games, it's a position. You reach the summit of this climbing game and then it's over. But I like this one because you get to a certain point in time and that's it. And you could always play it again. It's not just a one-time through like a lot of the climbing platformers are.
Yeah, absolutely. Much like an RPG, you can do like multiple different endings. You can have a couple of like branching routes as you go through it, but it would have like a few key aspects, right? Where the kind of ranked competitive like bad manner interaction section has probably some core mechanics that are the same but are more important or more enhanced than when you're doing these kind of side quests, right?
Right.
Where a side quest, something you can succeed or fail, but you can probably try again, go through those branching stories. But you need to bring your A game to those competitive, more ranked matches, or else there are going to be consequences.
Losses.
Yeah.
Maybe cuts. That would suck. It's like you're playing a 10-year career, and then you have just one very bad season. That didn't happen in real life, but you're not Larry Bird for real.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you just don't make the cut one year. You gotta either start over the whole game or play this kind of alternate timeline where Larry Bird went to like Europe to get good.
Yeah, GG.
Because he wasn't good enough for the league. An idea occurred to me while you were talking about this mashup of,
lay it
kind of
out.
Character interaction and competitive. I'm imagining a game kind of like Grand Theft Auto, but for sports, where you've got your time on the court, like NBA 2K whatevers do, and then there's the locker room kind of mini game part. I would like to delve into that more to where it's not just pep talks in the locker room and that's the extent of your interaction off court. What if you could actually just be in LA because that's where your team is based, and you're able to actually explore the city, talk to people. And at the beginning of the game, no one knows who you are. As you get better and better, you actually start to have interactions outside of this like arena that you always show up to. People might want to take pictures. Like I really enjoyed this in the latest Spider-Man game, where you can do a backflip for someone on the sidewalk and they'll clap for you. You could take a selfie with them and do all these things.
You can just kind of like live in the game a little bit.
Yeah, live outside of the main story sometimes.
All right, so let me
give you freedom to. I mean, in GTA you could do some shady stuff. You can be wanted, but I think in this game you'd probably get kicked pretty quickly off the team if you did any crimes.
Well, let me throw this out there then. Let's remove it from like the actual basketball sports setting and actually go to more of a GTA, and instead it's like you're building a criminal empire. And so you have the option to either, be a crooked cop and you're working up within the system, or you can form a gang outside. But before you have the like ranked competitive match, there's kind of a negotiation beforehand, right? So let's just say that, everybody has a team of 5 with 5 distinct roles. And so before you enter a competitive ranked match, you have just a brief negotiation thing. And that's when people decide, okay, I'm going to take the lead on this one. You're going to be like our gunner. You're going to be like our back guy. And so you have these...
Yeah, we need a getaway guy. Who's in the car?
Yep. And so you're competing with these gangs, but there's a reason for them to have rules there, which are that you have some sort of interaction, right? You have some sort of code of honor and negotiations beforehand, which means that you're not constantly fighting with them while you're interacting in the world outside, right? You might pass by like a guy from a rival gang, and then you like flick them off, but you can't go into a competitive ranked match right there. So you can have some of the bad manners while you're just exploring the city outside. And then it's just kind of a competition to take over the city. And so it's something where like
okay,
you would, if you're doing well, have a clear endpoint, and that's something that could, if you are ever successful, like take, I don't know, let's say it's a year for all the gangs to be reconciled before you have a final like major battle. And then there's a clear endpoint and your gang can take over, and there's a story behind all that's going on. And, there could even be, let's say that the cops are actually the like NPCs, right? So you're competing with rival gangs, and there are even like scripted story beats within the city that kind of cut down on the number of gangs by having the cops have a moment. So you're competing against other gangs, but occasionally you're making alliances to survive and take over. And so the actual story of the game, the actual completion, is like that final takedown of the cops and your final rival match with the only other opposing gang.
I'm loving this idea because you can get really creative with what is your crime enterprise. I would want to make it so that you could be really silly.
Yeah.
And maybe become like the Dawn of corn dogs on them corners. Right? You just have carts selling hot dogs on every corner. Well, not every corner, flood the market, but strategically placed throughout the city. You just have cornered the entire food truck market or something.
Yeah. You could also be the Honk Legion and just glitter bomb while everyone else are doing terrorist attacks.
Right? Maybe make it so that even though this game is kind of a crime game, you're trying to become a crime lord in whatever city you're in. Allow it so that your methods can be whatever you choose. Maybe you don't control the city through violence, but rather just good food.
Yeah, you can be as like hardcore or as easy as you want, and it's on the game developers to kind of balance that in the meta, right? So that way you can't just have a crime lord system that is always going to work, or a corn dog system that just breaks the market. It's like, I've murdered all my competitors, but the corn dogs have won the city.
Yeah, or donuts. Since part of the story is the cops in the game,
Yeah.
I think it might be very lucrative, the business of kind of selling on both sides.
Here's the
know?
thing, I'm not against there being like a core game mechanic that's kind of like in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where you throw out bananas and the Yiga clan gets distracted. And so they're like an
Is it
enemy, but the bananas like supplicate them. I'm not against the idea of like, well, they're cops, but they can be bribed with a donut. Or like you can, if you're trying to break in your like buddies out of jail while they're like being prosecuted in like a police district, I'm not against there being like a stealth option where you can like use donuts to lure cops away
Okay.
and like break your buddies out.
See, now I'm getting flashes of one of my. I didn't mention this game, but I like the Hitman series.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a nice blend of what we've been talking about. There's a great story mode. I mean, the game is a story.
Yeah.
But it's also, a strategy game trying to get to your target in, either the fastest way or most efficient way or in a very specific way. And it's also a shooter because you play an assassin. So I like that game. And in there's plenty of ways to distract certain enemies or bystanders.
Well, let me throw this out then. It's kind of like that, but the city has just so many different types of essentially mini games and game modes, right? Where if you're trying to be the stealthy assassin for your group during those like gang fights, you do more of those breaking out things and you increase your like sneaking and stealth levels. If you want to be more of the brawler and like take people down with like a bat, or if it's got more of a cyberpunk or futuristic aesthetic, a laser sword, well then you are going out and maybe you're roughing up people for money, or maybe you're like actually playing a sport or something, but you have various different like gameplay modes that fit whatever your role is on the team.
I like that. So if you're the getaway driver, you might spend all game just doing drag races and just escape time trials. They're like, hey, we were setting up this heist in a week. This is the escape route, but we need to be able to drive it in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you're part of a team, you're strategically being like, I like racing games, so I'm doing this role primarily. But also, if you don't have a lot of people to play with, or you don't like really like jive with any one of them more than the others, you could also just be a hired mercenary and like do all the different mini games and occasionally like hire out your services, right? So, Harold's gang has a like long range gunner guy who's just like not able to make it this week. So you put out like, well, we have a match coming up here, we need somebody to fill that role, and a mercenary can just like come in and fill that role. They're, not part of the team, or maybe they have a second character that's not part of the team and they can just come in and like do that for you.
Yeah,
and that
freelance.
Way, and so that way, if you only like the competitive scene, you can just be a freelancer and, rise up the like merc rankings.
I love it. I like that a lot because another idea came to mind. If a mechanic within the game is arrests, like you can actually lose team members. Say you've got like this perfect team of 5 you've been playing with for months, and one of them gets arrested. I don't know how the gameplay would change. I wouldn't want to make it so you just can't play. I think maybe that person switches environments and now they're playing in prison or something.
Yeah, I would say that would be their off competitive thing. And then if you want them to be available for the competitive thing, you'd have to like
Break
Bri-
them out.
break them out or bribe the like police, right? You have a like team budget, and so instead of buying a hot dog stand, you need to bail them out because they weren't able to break out in time, right? So you always will be able to get your guy back, but it'll
gonna
cost,
cost you.
yeah, it'll cost you if you're not playing right.
Okay, side tangent. Did you see the video of a guy, I don't know what state it was, but he did like this like chimney climb with his hands on one side of the wall, his feet were like on this wall, and he just walked his way up. I don't know how tall the building was, but he got out of the prison or jail wherever he was
Hot
being
dang.
held, and he escaped. He was out for like 12 days or something.
Dang.
So yeah, good for him. I guess maybe someone had tried it before, or maybe he is the first person to do that technique and now it's just never going to work again.
Well, as a feat of strength, I'm very impressed. Not knowing if he was just in there for like a bogus drug crime or like he ate 3 people's faces, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, I think eating faces is pretty bogus.
That's fair.
I mean, come on.
yeah.
They're delicious.
Let's not put that mechanic in the game.
Yeah.
You can be brutal but not eat faces, but I do think we need to wrap this up. So I want you to like end our like game by giving it a proper name. What is this like Grand Theft Auto meets like Club Penguin? Because
the Grand Theft Penguin? No.
yeah, but no, like all the world that has all these mini games feels very like Club Penguin-esque.
Yeah. I don't know. Something is drawing me towards mafia content, even though it's not like an Italian
Yeah.
mafia game. Like you could be literally any kind of criminal. How about
I know that the top guy in the mafia is like
The Don?
The Don.
yeah,
Don Wars.
Dawn Wars, Dawn Empire,
Don City.
Donald? Maybe that's just a unifying character in the game, is this guy who like was the previous main dude who knows everything.
I mean-
you need a main character to strive towards.
I mean, that can work, but you gotta lean into the goofy side.
Oh yeah, Disney, don't sue us. It's
Yeah.
totally unrelated.
Yep.
Okay, but how about Dawn Wars for now?
Alright, working title. I like it.
Working title. Sweet. Okay, see, we're not game developers, but we can spitball and also use something that is beneficial to both of us. Maybe we have our own preferences, but generally I'd say we enjoy games.
Yeah.
If you're feeling down, you could immerse yourself in a different world. Also strive towards some objective, because for me personally, that's when I feel the best, is when I can look back and see progress. I know games are a microcosm of setting goals and progressing, but I don't know, people can have their opinions on video games, maybe complete time waste, but I do think you can take that mindset of setting goals, achieving things, recognizing your own weaknesses and addressing them. You could take that outside of the realm of video games or even sports and apply it to your real life.
Absolutely. It's a tool, and it can either be used properly or improperly.
Right. So whether that's games or something else that you enjoy to do that and stay healthy, because that's the point of our public therapy, the special bonus episodes that we upload every other Monday of the check-in. So this has been a interesting episode. First time with a camera, so hi. This is what we look like. This is what we sound like and always have sounded like. So tune in again next time. Thank you for checking in.